All right. Welcome everyone to our August 2nd Thursday meeting. Today's the 10th of August, 2023. The Houston Electric Vehicle Association has a lot of good stuff going on tonight. And I'd also like to let everybody know about some good stuff coming up in the near future. So let me talk about that just to fill folks in before we get our speakers speaking. And want to let everybody know that we've got the 16th of September, that's a Saturday, booked for the Wings and Wheels. Wings and Wheels is an event that they do at the 1940 Air Terminal Museum, which is up next to the runways, a little bit farther east from where a lot of us go to get to the modern Hobby Airport Terminal. And they periodically have Wings and Wheels, and it is our club that will be there at the museum. And so we want to encourage all of our members with cars and everyone else to come on out there, and we will talk about EVs and also enjoy the museum at the same time. That's Saturday, September 16th. And then other things that we've got coming up.
Dave, I want to step in and correct you.
Yeah,
the old
please.
Terminal is west of where the main terminal is. It's off Telephone Road.
Ah, okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. It's something that is easy enough to look up on Google or other mapping software. So, and we'll talk about getting there when we get closer, namely at our September meeting. Okay. Very good. Thanks. And then following that, the National Drive Electric Week is coming up, and we have chosen Saturday the 30th, and we're working at getting our location at IKEA, where we've had our folks bring cars and talk to the public other times. That should work out well. So you can go to the Drive Electric Week website and see it there. And
also, Dave, I wanted to encourage people, if you want to do your own Drive Electric Week, you got a location that you'd like to set up. It's pretty easy to do. It contributes to the chapter, and we could easily we have in the past had 4 or 5 of these at one time or 1 week. So I just wanted to put in if you have an idea, we will help you.
Exactly. We would like to have multiple events in the Houston area or any area that you care to set up an event. And being a whole week and including 2 weekends, there's lots of opportunities. So we're just talking about IKEA for one of the days. But yes, anyone else who would like to work up an event, there's a lot of support from the National Drive Electric Week folks. And so it would be a lot of fun to do even more during that week.
Send an email to our Gmail account, and I'll be glad to help too.
Great. Thanks, Colin. All right. So that's a couple of things in September. Then in November, we've had some of our members go various years to the Electrify Expo in Austin. This year it's November 10th, 11th, and 12th. And so you get a chance to see a lot of vehicles. So last time we were there, a lot of electric bikes were there. And it's fun talking to people, representatives from the manufacturers about what's coming out. So that's in November in Austin. And then an opportunity that one of our members of the club has opened up to anybody who's interested, and that's the chance to fly in an e-glider. So gliders have been around for a long time. Usually they're towed to get up into the atmosphere. Kevin has it has a pusher prop, and so he's able to do multiple things with it, and he is kindly offered to give rides to folks. So again, you can contact us through our Gmail account. There's the email address, houstontxeva@gmail.com. Okay. And speakers, and this time we're lucky we have both external speakers and internal speakers. It's always fun for folks to talk about what they're doing, projects, conversions, put solar somewhere new. And so anybody who would like to do that, please also send in an email. And then we also have, of course, the bigger organization. It's both for the US and Canada. And as it happens to be, I'm up in Canada right now because I'm on a kind of a business trip to a conference. And so I'm coming to you from Ottawa, Canada right now. So we're being international today, but we'd also like to encourage everybody to join the Electric Vehicle Association. There is a small amount of dues per year, but you get a lot out of it, and it helps that organization help us, our chapter, as well. So always want to encourage people to join the bigger organization. And one of the things that we've got for folks is business cards. So there's probably some there in the room, and if not, we'll have some other opportunities. Yeah, good. And so anybody who would like to have some cards, they're just kind of handy things. Somebody sees you driving your EV and you might want to just give them a card, and that gives them some information on the card and lets them know about our chapter. And you can, of course, tell them that we have monthly meetings. So speaking of the meetings, we've got some rough planning for the next couple of months, but in December, as usual, we will have our social. So we will determine which day we want to do that. It may not be necessarily on the second Thursday. It may be on a weekend, because that's usually good for folks to bring family members. And that's kind of the idea of this December social, is that we meet at some place to eat. Everybody just can get whatever food they want on their own dime. And then it's the opportunity that family members get to know what it is that we're doing and who their family members are meeting with every month. So that's always kind of fun in December. So anybody else have any other general things that we want to bring out? So we will have our speakers starting here. And as usual, you can ask questions real time in the room by voice through Zoom, or you can put them in the chat and then I will read them off. And that's kind of sometimes convenient because you can catch a thought in your mind and then we can call it out and ask our speaker what question you have. So now it's really exciting to have Laura. Laura's one of the two co-founders of the Texas Electric School Bus Project. And of course, electric school buses is something that I've thought we've needed for a long time. I mean, most all of us remember our school days and school buses going around and the diesel exhaust and things like that. And I mean, it just makes so much sense. In fact, I just saw a statistic in something I read the other day. It was talking about how in one particular area, the asthma rates for kids have gone way down when the air in their local area gets improved. I mean, it just goes to show those young developing lungs really do need clean air. So, all right, Laura, if you're ready, I will pass the baton over to you.
Yeah, thank you for having our organization tonight. Jessica was going to present, but I was just telling Colin, we are in the midst of applying for a Department of Energy, a grant with University of Houston, Omni Powertrain Technologies, and ourselves, and we are and HGAC as well. So this is a really huge grant she's been working on for weeks, and it's due tomorrow. So
all right,
yeah,
nothing like timing.
Fingers crossed for that one.
Yeah.
If I can get my screen shared here. Is that the full picture?
Yes, I can see
okay.
that.
So as they mentioned, we are the Texas Electric School Bus Project. We were just incorporated in February of this year. So we're a very new organization. Jessica kind of had the idea of this back in maybe October, November, when she was approached by another company that asked her just what she knew about electric school buses. And, you know, her answer was immediately like, well, we'll find out. We'll find out a lot of information. And so we kind of partnered together just to have two people kind of run ideas off of each other is much easier, especially with such a daunting thing like electrifying 50,000 school buses in Texas alone. So our mission is to facilitate the speedy and equitable transition to a zero emission school bus fleet in Texas. And as I just said, we have the largest school bus fleet in the nation. So there's almost 500,000 on the road in the nation, and Texas has about 50,000. So why electric school buses? More than 95% of school buses in the United States are diesel. Diesel exhaust is known as a carcinogen, and it's linked to serious physical health issues like asthma. There's also a lot of cognitive development issues that are known and currently being studied, and I'll kind of go through some of those in the slide deck as well. There's a lot of reports on test scores being improved and asthma rates, as he mentioned as well. And then children are especially at risk. So it's been proven many times that there are long-term effects for them. There's even a statistic that we read: if you ride the school bus for an hour or two a day, K through 12, you have a 5% greater risk for any sort of cancer in your lifetime. So here's a chart from Clearview Health. And this is showing math scores and English scores in schools. And this is kind of just based on the air quality. So at the bottom here of the chart, you can see you have the air pollution from lowest to highest, and then the standards that are being met. So when the air pollution is lowest, it's 21% are not meeting, where it goes up to 41% with the worst air quality. And this kind of is demonstrating one of our really big things. So you'll notice the word equitable in our mission statement. Equity is really important for us because we know when we rolled out vehicles in general, we didn't do it properly. We kind of just ran and scrapped things together as we went. And I think the electric revolution has to be very different, and especially with school buses, and we have to start with these low-income communities. So communities of color face on-road fine particulate matter. It's much higher than white residents. 60% of low-income students ride the bus to school compared to 45% of non-low-income students. And students from Black households are more likely to ride the bus to school than students from households of other races. So this is all kind of playing into the disparity that's already showing up across the nation. This is just kind of another infographic. You can see, let me see if I can. Yeah, absolutely. And we have a lot of resources on our website. So one of, we'll kind of get to it in the slide deck, but one of the things that we want to be is just like a clearinghouse of information. So if you have questions or you talk to this about anybody, we want to be the resource you come to.
And you can get presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get to that too. So we do one of our like mission statements is to really do education, community outreach, because we know this is kind of a bottom-up thing, because there are bus manufacturers like Lion Electric who are only making electric school buses. However, Thomas Built, IC, Bluebird, these huge names in school buses are making their bread and butter from diesel buses still. So while they are offering electric buses, we really want the drive to be sooner. We want to push them to be doing electric now. No, school buses are the worst for idling. And there's actually TechCenter out of Austin. I think Smitty did a study with U of H at some point that showed idling in front of schools, like, and the teachers are out there, the school bus drivers, the administration, and all of the kids are just standing there loading these buses, and the doors to the school are wide open. And all of this particulate matter is just going back in and then being filtered around the school, which there's some really interesting studies on that. No, there are no things on that. There are now seatbelts though, which is also a new thing in Texas. So here are the benefits of electric school buses. So obviously environmental, reduced operating costs, energy efficiency, quiet operation, and then health and safety for the drivers, the administration, the teachers, and the students. One of the things that's really difficult is the cost of an electric school bus right now. There is $5 billion allocated from the Inflation Reduction Act for school bus transition. And so there's this huge round of EPA funding. We're on our second round right now, which closes on August 22nd. Now, $5 billion only buys you about 12,500 school buses because they cost about $400,000 each. And this is nationwide. So it's really a drop in the bucket of what we need. So once we can kind of get these into the hands of people and people know why it's so important and the benefits of it, they'll also start to see things like this, which are the cost benefits per mile. So you have here a conventional school bus, like what it costs for fuel and maintenance. And then an EV alternative bus it's a third, less than it's really amazing how much in the long run. There's actually a study that was done out of Austin that I think it shows you save up to $170,000 in the lifetime of the bus. So that pretty much pays for the bus itself, especially if prices come down and we can get more of these buses on the road and more manufactured. We'll also talk about one of our priorities, which is repowers coming up. So who is Texas Electric School Bus Project? Well, personally, it's Jessica Keithan, who's pictured here above, myself, Laura Hester. We have a wonderful woman named Michelle Montague out of the Dallas area, Fort Worth area, who's been volunteering for the time being. We're really hoping to hire her soon when we kind of get some of this grant money we're working on. And then we have 2 interns that have been working over the summer, one from Rice and one from U of H, that have helped develop our app, which we'll talk about. So we do education and outreach. And this is what Colin was just referring to. We're really looking to go into schools and give these presentations, let PTAs, PTOs, like teacher organizations, even student groups know about this. We'll bring donuts, we'll bring coffee. We also applied for a grant to specifically do this aspect of the project. So this is really important because once they kind of know what's going on, it just will spread like wildfire, especially when you see some of the numbers and some of these graphs of test scores and health outcomes. And then the second thing we have is an app, which we just launched last Friday, and tomorrow it will be available on the App Store. And this just shows a huge set of aggregated data that's really, really easy to access. I think I have a slide about this next too, so we'll get to that. Then we have a huge focus on repowers, learning tools, and these are like community toolkits and stuff. So you can actually get this on our website, and we're working on getting them in Spanish as well to deliver. Content and events. So this is kind of goes in with hub for information and networking. So we want to be a place where people come together. We want to host roundtables for, engineers, charging infrastructure people, OEMs, teachers, all of these people to come and kind of put their thoughts into one place and help them facilitate this. And then call to action. We are just trying to do whatever we can to get this going for the community. So here's the app that we have developed this summer. This is kind of 2 images of it. This map here with the blue dots is kind of the bread and butter of it. And this shows every single school district in the state of Texas. And you can zoom in on it. And when you click on each school district, it comes up here. So here's Anahuac ISD. It's in Chambers County. It gives you the website for the school. It gives you all of the information about the buses in that first tab. The second tab is all the district info. And then it shows you your utility providers, because obviously having a relationship with your utility providers for such huge charging infrastructure is one of the most important things. So we also, the district demographic info at the bottom, these pie charts, they show the asthma rates. Let's see, the percentage of the population below the poverty line, percentage of schools that are Title I eligible, percentage of students eligible for free or reduced lunch, and percentage of population which are minority. This information is really useful for OEMs, for example, who want to sell their buses to districts and they want to write these EPA grants for them. So they can use this kind of a tool to easily access information and do the grant writing, because also the WRI has outlined priority outreach districts, which are districts that are in more that are low income or have bad air, some combination of them to be prioritized. And this is a tool that shows that too. As you can see, there's a filter that will show you that. We also have lofty ideas for it. So we want to have job boards on there and implement training systems with local community colleges, even Rice, University of Houston. We've kind of met with all of these people to try and get them on board, because we know one of the things is just going to be having the staff to do this, because there's going to be a rapid transition, and there's been a lot of promises so far, and we want to help make sure it happens. So for example, Austin Independent School District in Texas has voted unanimously, I think last year, to become an all electric school bus fleet by 2035. And they will only buy electric school buses starting in 2027. So for this to happen, OEMs and charging infrastructure companies really have to get things together and to be prepared, because there was actually an interesting article from a school district in New York State that received quite a lot of money. It may have been from one of the Volkswagen suits when they had money for that. And they rejected it because they didn't know what to do with it. They had no one to show them how to develop this infrastructure, where to buy these buses. So they gave the money back. So we're trying to avoid situations like that, essentially. Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? This is exactly what we want to avoid. And then we also have the lofty idea of having some sort of system that will help with grant applications. So these EPA grants are ridiculous. They're so long, and they're so verbose, and they're very confusing. And districts are very deterred by this. So as I said before, OEMs are choosing to do grant writing for them in exchange for promises of purchases or just consideration to purchase their buses in particular, which is a great route. And we are very happy to connect school districts with companies that are doing that to get them in the process. But we would also love to be completely brand agnostic at some point, so that there is a drive for this to be really equitable and to bring the cost down. So we would love to have some sort of grant writing help on the app, where you kind of fill out a form and then it does this aggregation for you. It's also to connect people. So sharing information is a really big part of this. As I said, we want to be brand agnostic. And another reason for that is because we don't have time for people to be hoarding information. It's very limited time to get this stuff going. The emissions, the carbon emissions, if we transition the whole fleet, is really astronomical. Oops. So why is it taking so long? High upfront cost, limited charging infrastructure, lack of information and awareness, limited availability, long waits, and need for infrastructure upgrades. This is kind of sort of what I've been discussing. This chart shows you kind of low end and high end prices of these buses. So with the EPA grant, from what I understand, I think almost all of these new ESBs are $395 roughly. But this is, if you're going out of that, it's not grant based. You're looking at a lot of fluctuating costs. Ooh, am I going the wrong way? There we go. Okay, that could be. So why repowers? We are focusing on repowering existing combustion engines to electric. Obviously, we were very inspired to do so in the beginning, because we need to be good stewards of this environment. And it takes, it's a ton of carbon emissions to produce, or it's two tons of carbon emissions to produce 1 ton of steel. I mean, it's really ridiculous. And these bus frames, there's not a lot to them. So kind of using what we already have would be really helpful. We also know that if we do repowers, it cuts down dramatically on the time that it takes to deliver one of these buses. However, we have to get the technology really going. There are some companies that are doing repowers, like I think C Electric is doing them. There's a place out of North Carolina. It's actually, they've been working in Europe and South Africa, but they're now in North Carolina too. They're called Bison EV. They're a wonderful company. And they're working on repowers. I think their first Class C bus will be repowered in a couple of weeks, it should be, but I believe they've done a Class A already. So this is faster delivery, stewardship of resources, creation of regional jobs, because also when you buy a new electric bus, if you bought a Lion electric bus, they're going to put it on a flatbed and ship it down here from Chicago, which is just ridiculous when we can open these repower facilities locally and create jobs. Ease the transition. And this also is a good answer for electrifying the developing world. If you've ever been to Mexico, Central America, South America, you probably notice a lot of old school buses are driving you around, and I can almost guarantee that they just strip that DPF off and are just, the emissions are even worse. And as we all know, it is actually a shared air system. So it would hopefully help this. There's a lot of pushback on this particular thing, I would say, because they don't have the resources to go all electric yet, but I think there are companies that will work for that. And we don't really have time to get hung up on things, I would say personally. So this is the grant project concept that Jessica is currently finishing up tonight. We're looking to repower 2 school buses, develop a repower curriculum, develop a business plan so that it could be a lucrative company in the future, and then do a tour of Texas on one of the buses. So University of Houston, there are 2 engineering professors there that are working with her on this. And then the Houston Galveston Clean Cities is one of the members putting in the grant. So this is going to be a step-by-step process, and we want to record all of it, videotape it, and make it part of this curriculum for places like San Jacinto College or University of Houston or even Rice to use when they're doing training programs. Because it is very expensive to just figure out if we can do this. So there's no point in going through this process without sharing all of the information that we're gathering. This is kind of a chart of the repower process here from the WRI. We do get a lot of great information from WRI. They have a clean school bus initiative. This was funded, I think, by like the Bezos Earth Fund or something, but they have a lot of money, but they don't have as many boots on the ground as they need. So we kind of see ourselves as the boots on the ground in Texas to kind of get this information disseminated and going here locally. So this is, you take the existing bus, inspect and evaluate, you take the diesel guts out, essentially. You refurbish it. There's actually the Ellis Bus Repair Unit in Huntsville State Prison. They do bus refurbishes, and they also build furniture and things like that. If you don't know about them, it's a really interesting kind of another job training section that we would like to consider. And then repower. This is to install and integrate the EV drivetrain components. And from what I understand, there's kind of like the actual engine parts and then the auxiliary system. So there would be 2. And then it goes under testing and quality control. That part's a little bit ambiguous still. So we also want to be on the forefront of helping to make sure that these buses are really safe. So you can check out our website if you want to become a member, get involved. You can volunteer with us. You can host an event. You can just tell people about this. If you just talk about an electric school bus, it becomes less of a foreign concept, obviously. When you go on our website, you can sign up for a newsletter. It's down at the very bottom of the page. And you can also become a member. So we have community memberships starting at $50, and it's tax deductible. We're a nonprofit, give as much as you want, obviously. We have student memberships and we have corporate memberships, and corporate memberships grant you access to the app that we've developed also, for anyone that is kind of in that line of work that might be interested. You would think that I would know which way to go by now. So here's a picture of some events that we've done. We did the Earth Day Festival hosted by Green Mountain Energy at Discovery Green. We hosted an open house, which I believe is where we met Robert, which is why we're here today. He came to that, which was really nice. And then we go, there's a lot of conferences to attend. Like, so this bottom left corner, for example, is the Texas Association of Pupil Transportation. And then once again, here's our website. If you need any more information, please feel free to contact us. Any feedback, we love feedback. Any questions too?
So we toured.
So somebody in the room there, they can grab a mic. We can start with that question. That was fantastic, Laura. I mean, it's just so exciting, all the things you got going on. And yes, the depth, what it takes to get something to happen, whether it's grants or repowers or whatever, it's just always amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so shall I? Okay, yeah. So we toured Metro, got a tour of their new bus fleet. I forgot where they're buying them from. We also toured HCC, the auto mechanics area where they teach mechanics to work on cars. And I guess I'd like to ask the question. I visited DC Fast Charge Place the other day, and both of the machines were broken. Not only that, I injured my thumb, but that's another story. And I'm just wondering, I assume you would use just a commercially available DC fast charge to charge these buses. Do you happen to know? We're a group of techies, so we're going to ask.
Oh, okay. Yeah, to be totally honest, like I do not, like I had to have my father about 6 months ago, like tell me how energy works. I'm like, wait, so these things just willy-nilly are going on the power lines? So I will answer this in the only way that I know possible. And that is that in these grants, there is funding allocated specifically for charging infrastructure as well. So the bus depots, I mean, the idea is to have every bus electrified. So once we kind of get them set up with charging stations, it's also more of an incentive to get more buses because you already have that developed. And so I'm not sure if it is going to be fast charging. They do generally are charged on off peak. And there's a lot of possibility, not in Texas because of ERCOT, but well, I guess in surrounding, if you go east, north, and west Texas, you can look at vehicle to grid charging. So using these as giant generators for music festivals or hospitals or schools when the power goes out.
Do you have any idea how much energy it is? What specifically, here's what I specifically want to know.
To charge one bus, you mean?
How does the amount of energy it takes to charge the buses to fill a school with kids compared to the amount of energy that the school burns all day, air conditioning and lighting those kids?
I'm not sure how it compares in relationship to that, but it is definitely lower than the energy it takes to burn the fossil fuel. There are studies on this in particular.
Well, my question is pointing to, do you really need new transmission facilities? Because you already have transmission to the school that you're not using most of the day. And it's at the same time that you're not using the buses. Also, I say you don't need DC fast charge. You got all night.
Yeah. So a lot of these have a battery life of about 130 miles, which is more than adequate for city driving. And it's, if you, there's regenerative braking, if you're using it in something like somewhere like Austin, Houston, you might not see so much of that. So there will be, especially in rural districts, you will be charging midday as well, if that answers your question. So I don't know if it, yeah.
When the solar power is available from the constantly increasing number of utility scale solar farms in Texas. Yeah. So are there more questions in the room? So it was good, Bill, that you brought up about Metro and their buses. So I don't know how much Laura has followed what Houston Metro is doing, and they're starting to get more and more electric buses. They buy about 100 buses a year. They last 12 years. They have 1,200 buses, and they are just now getting going with having electric buses on metro routes. And the reason I also bring that up is that the use case, so different routes require different things. And I would think different school districts, whether it's a rural school district that has really long routes that go way out in the countryside versus a more urban one that, they have a bus full of kids already just going through one neighborhood. So those use cases and that type of thing is going to determine whether you want the fast charging or whether the slow charging can do. And what some businesses have found is that if they switch to LED lighting, because there's less power draw for lighting, they can then put in other things that have power draws like electric vehicles. And so you kind of get a trade-off there, but obviously it's going to depend situation to situation. So but let's go to a couple of the questions that we've got on the chat here. So what is the lifetime of a typical school bus? Do you happen to know, Laura?
Yeah, so they're it's going to be about 10 to 15 years. Maybe a lot of these are going to be 300,000 miles too. There are some, like I know Bison, EV&C Electric are offering warranties with their repowers too, that
Okay.
are, I think, 7 years.
Okay, so that's
Of note is that a repower is costing about 150,000 to 175,000. So it's an extreme price reduction.
right. And it can also probably depend on how old and worn out the bus is that you're starting with. If it's just a 1-year-old bus or a lot older. But so the number of years you mentioned kind of fits in with what Metro finds with their buses, their 12-year replacement. So next check question, are retrofits economical as the diesels wear out?
Yes.
Okay, because yeah, it kind of
So
seems
for
like
reference, the presentation that we had a couple of years ago from the gentleman from Metro pointed out that during the lifetime of their buses, which is similar in the kind of 10 to 12-year range, they expect to replace the engine twice and the transmission once, or vice versa. I forget which is which. So assuming that the usage is similar, that during the lifetime of that entire chassis, you're going to have to replace the entire driveline anyway. I think that the retrofit probably has a really good case to be made. It is more expensive than just buying a diesel motor, but a lot less expensive, I would hope, than buying a new bus.
Oh, yeah.
right, yeah. So timing, in other words, and don't just take a school bus wherever it's at in its diesel engine lifetime, but rather time it for when it's going to need major overhaul.
Exactly. When it's due for major component replacement, then consider the new technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that so the batteries I think that they're offering are 7 years for the retrofit companies, if I'm not mistaken. But the other parts of the bus in general, they last much longer than the diesel. And in terms of like the frame and everything, that is one of the big things, like one of the pushbacks from the OEMs. They are very anti-retrofit. We were in a conference with some of them and they were asked specifically what they thought about retrofits and they're like, oh, it's a terrible idea. We're like, okay, costs a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
they're in the business of selling new motors and new transmissions. Why
Yeah.
would they want somebody else supplying an alternate driveline?
Yeah, if anybody knows anyone that's really good at kind of sourcing things, doing studies and like aggregating data, I would love to see how retrofits would actually benefit the new bus manufacturers too, because I think because it would speed up the process so much before the price has time to come way down, they would actually make a lot more profit off it as the turnover is faster.
So if they offered their own kit, right?
Yeah, this is true too.
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate for a minute, sometimes when something isn't engineered from the beginning to operate in a certain way, the reliability can suffer a lot. And of course,
Absolutely.
you don't want school buses full of kids, going out a mile down the road and then they're broken down because
Yes.
some wear and tear on a wire that's frayed or something,
Yeah, or just I think one of the big concerns is weight and if it can carry the weight.
Right, exactly. Batteries are heavy.
But reinforcing it is just, going to be part of the process, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing is that
Mhm.
when we have seen some of these electric school buses in person, so we also want to host ride and drives as part of our events. I mean, these buses have things like a gas flap, so you're like, well, was it actually designed just to be an electric bus or are you still just kind of taking these same parts? It's an argument to be made for that as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. The next question.
We actually want to have some oversight of the safety. That is a big part of the retrofit thing. But
And-
next question, please. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm just trying to keep things moving. How do EV school buses compare to natural gas and propane school buses in respect to pollution and cost?
The upfront cost of the propane ones is a little bit less. I think it's more than a diesel. You're still getting emissions, you're just getting less. I hate to say it's it's a faulty stepping stone, because I also think that, the batteries that we're going to be using could be classified as that as well. I think a lot of people are kind of holding out for hydrogen and stuff, but we're also hoping that the retrofit process is the sturdy stepping stone in that direction. We are not big advocates for propane buses.
Yeah, and it just makes sense on a lot of scales, but obviously you want to get the data on these different things to answer these kinds of
We have
questions.
a lot of these statistics and stuff that I'm actually happy to put together and email to y'all, because there is a lot of these things that I've read about. There are people that have done studies on the cost difference too.
Oh, good. Good, yeah. Okay, so Jim Tucker writes, school buses have a low range to drive each day, so do they need fewer batteries than intercity buses? And any discussion of fuel cell buses?
Yeah, so one of the things is we're talking about is maybe charging midday for rural districts. Probably a lot of them too, depending on the routes. I also wanted to note that down the line somewhere we would love to do better route planning, so that we increase ridership on school buses and it's just more efficient. Sorry, what was the question? I got off track there for a second.
Fuel
So-
cell.
Oh, yes. So there is possibility for adding obviously extra batteries, which is extra weight, which is what we're going to look at in the Repower project as well, for things like rural districts that wouldn't be able to make it back on 130.
Yeah, okay. And
I've got a dearth of questions, but a million ideas. Look at lithium titanate batteries.
Yeah.
A company called Altair Nano went out of business because their batteries lasted too long. Seriously.
Yeah, no, this is yes, this is great.
And Houston is the headquarters of Toshiba's lithium titanates in the US.
yeah, all kinds of chemistries for batteries out there. So
Some
we
of
have,
the saltwater ones too are apparently.
yeah, you made a reference to typical costs before, and here question is, how much does one of these Houston Metro buses cost? 400K bus seems unsustainable. Now, of course, you're not familiar necessarily with the Houston Metro buses, but on the school buses, you mentioned something just under 400K.
Yeah, so they're roughly 370, 395 is what they're selling them to districts through EPA funding.
Mhm.
But if it's a private sale, like I know Sci-Fair is has the most electric school buses in Texas. I think he just ordered 10 more. He's a big advocate for EVs. His name is Dr. Kane Smith, the transportation director there. I have no idea what the cost is that he paid for those. It would be interesting to find out, because I know they vary. And I think, of course, when you order more from these OEMs, you get better deals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Efficiency through larger quantities. So
And then in terms of the Metro, we talked to somebody recently. I can't remember. I think they're 500 to 700.
Yeah, so our trip to
That's right.
Metro, they said the electric buses that they buy are $1 million. Yeah, compared to I believe it was a 600,000 for a diesel. He wasn't willing to say that they would make it back in fuel and maintenance until they actually did it. And the next go around of buses, they're buying fuel cell buses that are hydrogen fueled. So they're trying out a couple of different methods.
yeah, the Metro folks have a concern with drawing so much current because their buses don't have as much downtime as school buses typically. And so they need to get them back on the road. You put in a lot of high current that, as you mentioned already, having to deal with utility providers and so forth. And so, yeah, they have a little different situation. So I see
And
Jason.
I have seat belts.
Yeah, I see Jason's raised his hand. He's got the next comment. Jason, you want to go over your comment?
Oh, sure. So I was poking around on the website and I was curious if y'all had a resource for folks who are interested in buying one. The NASA Space Center preschool has a bus that's kind of on the end of its life. And so, you know, if we had a program that was interested in doing this, what are the resources to apply for a grant, get in contact with the people that do the conversions, all of the things that we would actually have to do to make it happen?
Well, that is probably the most exciting thing I've heard all week. So yeah, so basically right now, please just contact us because we will put you in contact with everyone that we know that's in this department. However, we were offered from Bison EV basically a free retrofit up front. And if there are no problems with it and you want to order more, then it maybe stays free. If it's the only one you're going to get, you might pay for it, but we would love to put you in contact with them because they're really looking to get one of their retrofits on the road in Texas enough to have this incentive. So please email us. You can do either Laura at texaselectricschoolbusproject.org or Jessica or Howdy. Those three would work. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Get in contact with you. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And the other question I had was, I noticed you quoted a bunch of numbers for like new buses. Do we have any idea what like a retrofit costs compared to a new one?
Yeah, so I think Bison EV is looking to charge $175,000 for it. We are looking to keep the price at like 150, and that makes it really competitive because actually new diesel school buses are upwards of 140 now, which is, I mean, a lot of them are around 100,000, but they're getting pushed up to 140.
Cool.
All right, thank you. Some
The
other
new
comments in the chat, comparison of non-EV buses and cars, and then again, the Houston Metro buses are about 700K diesel or 1100K for electric. So as Colin said, over $1 million, yeah. And then the last comment here, sounds like Rivian and Amazon have it figured out, 70K for one of those vans. So if you're not familiar, Laura, the Amazon electric delivery vans, which have started to show up around Houston. So you see both the Ford vans and the Rivian vans. Amazon is an investor in Rivian. So they are building those for Amazon specifically to deliver packages as Amazon does. And I didn't know how much they were, but according to this, about 70K. So I guess another option to put on the table, I mean, you've put out a lot of options, but one would be fewer of the large traditional size school buses that we've seen and have more smaller ones because those are more available. You'd have more flexibility in charging them, things like that. So that might be something that school districts might consider as well as not the full-size school buses, but something more like an Amazon delivery truck size bus.
I love that idea, actually. It's something to consider. We are, after this grant is turned in tomorrow, we're going to specifically work on a grant that focuses on doing Class A buses. So special needs buses in particular, because these are the kids that a lot of them have no other way to school, and they're on the bus much further because you're going to specific houses. And they also are already so disadvantaged, it just doesn't make any sense not to do these ones first. So we would love to expedite that process. Yeah.
All right. And because it comes back to, as we said, the more production of something, the lower the cost per unit can be. So, all right. So any other final questions for Laura? Yeah.
Laura, is your company going to do repowering, conversions? Or
is our company?
Yeah.
So we are a nonprofit and we are just kind of an education and like networking at the moment. But one of our projects is applying for this grant to do repowers, and we are hoping to probably start a company that's doing repowers based off of the information we get from the process, and then the nonprofit has a stake in it so that it has some control over it. So it has control over the safety and the pricing so that it is actually equitable.
Okay.
Jessica's.
Yeah.
They're doing.
Yeah, so Omni Powertrain, they make electric drivetrains and like axial flux motors, which is what they would use on the bus, which is a lot lighter too, from what I understand.
So there will be a startup for.
Yes,
doing the
so if
conversions
anybody is
local.
interested, if anybody is interested in being a part of this, we would absolutely love to talk about that because we will be looking for investors and brainstormers for this project. Absolutely. Yeah. So Omni has a large engineering staff. We're using U of H. We also are in touch with some of the Meckies from Rice, but yes, all sorts of brains we want on this.
All right. So thank you very much, Laura. This has been great getting all the info from you here. So
Yeah, thank you for having us.
yeah, and so you're welcome to stick around, and some people might corner you with some additional questions and things like that.
Yeah, we need all the information and questions. So please.
Yeah, and so yeah, it is always a critical thing to be able to evaluate what
Yeah.
direction somebody wants to go. And of course, we are in the deregulated part of Texas, so people can choose their retail electric provider.
Easy.
And so now there's getting to be even more options with the batteries, what different plans from the different reps will give you the type of use of your batteries that you want. Because some people want them just more for storm protection so that they've got fully charged batteries in case the grid goes down. Other folks want to use a certain amount of their battery capacity to either time shift their own daytime electricity excesses into the nighttime or to address the market and do a little arbitrage that is buy low, sell high. So they can get power from their own PV or actually buy from the grid. For example, the Texas grid has a lot of wind on it. And that means that when that wind is blowing, which is a lot of times during the nighttime, there can be an excess of wind power. And so that drives the price down very low. The way I understand the market is that the wind turbine owners actually bid in at 0 cents per kilowatt hour or per megawatt hour. And that way they're always certain that they will be selected as power providers. As the way the auctioning goes, the ERCOT organization in Texas takes all the bids and stacks them up from lowest to highest price, and whatever the clearing price is for the amount of power needed for a 15-minute period is what all the power gets purchased at, even the ones that have bid in lower, even 0. Yeah, in fact, I think sometimes they might even bid negative because sometimes they can say power prices can actually go negative because there's just so much availability compared to demand typically at night. But with more batteries, of course, then that power can be shifted, which is a good thing. So as Jim gets ready there, let me know when you're ready, Jim. I see Seth has written on the chat, I bought my Bolt in November 2017, my solar panels, oops, it just shifted. 14.8 kilowatts in July 2020 and backup batteries in July 2021, added a second Bolt in November 21. I've been aggressively exploring a time of use plan since November. Very good. Yeah, the time of use is one of the good things about the variety of plans that are out there. And then we have a comment, I'm also in the same boat, EV plus PV plus battery system, and currently use the Tesla electric utility, which has algorithms that smartly sell back even from your storage. Okay, and Jim will address that. And I am in the market for a level 2 EV charger and saw Emporia has a charger with optional view energy monitor system that is supposed to be smart enough to use just the excess solar energy to charge your car. Does anyone have any experience with this type of system? Yeah, so that's one of the things that's kind of been a hot topic, is using solar energy, like when your home batteries are full up, but your car is not, and your house is only using a certain amount. You want that excess solar energy rather than going back on the grid, which you may not get compensated much for, you get to put that into your car. So yeah, getting more of these smart chargers or electric vehicle servicing equipment, EVSEs, out on the market is great. So I'm not familiar with this brand, but if anybody is familiar with that type of system here, you can speak up. And of course, if you're watching this on a recording, you can make contact through our club's Gmail account, and we can connect people up that way.
I'm going to go ahead and talk about various rep options for EV owners in Houston. A rep, of course, is a retail electric provider. I did the research here, and happy to show you what I came up with. Once I clear all the attempts to join Zoom.
I think I'm sharing.
Right. I just want everyone I can look at it. All right. So that's we're going to talk about the various options, and then I'm going to present my experience with one of them, which is Tesla Electric with Battery Association. But first, a note of humor. Is that readable?
Yep, we can see it online. Yep.
A couple of small smiles in the room. All right.
Yeah.
Take it.
Mhm.
We've all been there, EV owners.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we're going to talk about which reps the retail electric providers are in the market, or energy providers, what benefits are offered to the consumers from these various plans, what considerations are involved. And there was a new development when I put this slide together last year, or early this year for HREG meeting, that Tesla has created a VPP, a virtual power company. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry. Next slide. It is.
Yeah, you got
Check. All right. So what I've come up with is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 providers of electricity that have some angle that will appeal to electric vehicle owners. There are 5 listed there on the left, and there's a little one written under the photograph there. Green Mountain has no EV benefit, but you can get on it if you want to have solar power. Next. Here's a clip, screen grab from a newspaper article, local Houston Chronicle, from February this year. And there's Michael Lee pictured, CEO of Octopus Energy. We had Chris, I forget his last name, a rep from Octopus, speak to us a couple of months ago. So this headline triggered some thoughts. Houston electric providers are sweetening their incentives. Well, that's got to be good, right?
Yep.
So here's that headline. And right there in the first line, electric vehicle enthusiast Colin Lowen, sitting right to my right, was interviewed for that article, and references Jessica Energy, asked if he wanted to be an early adopter, had a plan targeted for EV users. He signed up. And I think most of you can read what's shown here. I won't read it to you, but he seems to be enthusiastic about it. Colin, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you still enthusiastic about it?
That plan did not work for me. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll show you your other options tonight.
Good.
And another retail provider besides Jessica is Octopus. As I mentioned, they spoke to us recently, and they have got an angle for EV owners, mainly involves charging at night. They have some limits on that plan I'll get to in a moment. Another major electric provider is TXU. Parent company is Vistra, who owns several other companies. And if you plug in at your home between 7 p.m. and 1 p.m. the next day, you can get a discounted rate. And watch these hours. Some of these plans only have 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours of low cost or sometimes free charging. And some of them have much bigger windows. All right, so I mentioned Octopus. They are up and rolling. They were referenced nicely in that newspaper article. Their main product is Intelligent Octopus. Just want to point out the brands that they work with. And this is a list that may be growing, but there you are: Audi, BMW, a few others, Tesla. I know I have at least one Hyundai driver in the room, and I don't see that on there. But that's not a static list. I think they will be expanding that. They have another plan that's called Octo Grid Boost. And here you get $40 a month just to be in the plan. And you connect your battery to Octopus, not your car, but your battery. And they'll pay you $40 credit every month.
Mhm.
But they control your battery, the input and the output. So there's some trade-offs there. Another rep is TXU Energy, a pretty prominent company in this state. And for their electric vehicle resources, they list 3 on their website. The first one is available in our area. The second 2 are not. And the first one is the drive free with free EV miles. And it's not a discount. It's 100% free from 7 p.m. to 1 p.m. That's a pretty wide window. And it's all these plans are 100% renewable, wind, solar, whatever. So here's the details. Here are the details on the TXU free EV miles 12 program. You can see a price here. There's a table coming up that shows all the different companies, rows and columns, and what their rates are and what their terms are, et cetera, et cetera. Sign up now, you can get a $50 Visa prepaid card also. So they're trying to round up some sales. Here's Reliant, an NRG company. Reliant has 2 plans. There's this one, which is for electric vehicle owners, the electric vehicle 12 plan. 12 is for the term, 14.5 cents if you're in the 2000 kilowatt hour. And I tried to make these comparable by always using the quoted 2000 kilowatt hour per month. Some of the plan features here, it's 100% renewable. As I said, they all are. Some plans are fixed rate, some are not. And their window for discount electricity is 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So it's a smaller window, but you can probably get your car charged up in those 8 hours on level 2 charging. If you don't have a level 2 charger, you might be interested in the EV charger included plan. That's also Reliant. They call it the EV Charger 24 plan. Note that the rate is a little higher. Instead of 14.5, it's 16.1. And also note at the bottom of the screen here, cancellation fee, early cancellation fee is $400 or $395. But the previous one, early cancellation fee is $150. So if you cancel early, I think they're trying to recoup cost for the charger they've given you. But keep that one in mind. Jessica Energy, they have got 4 plans, or you could say 2 plans, a 12-month and a 24-month version of each. And you can see the prices are not that divergent. You can see the hours that they're going from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. That's a pretty decent window. Although, if you notice on the 3rd column, it's 9 p.m. to 4:59. I'm not sure what that 1 minute difference makes, but be aware of that. And you can set the charger in your car to get your battery filled up and within those hours. That's one thing to consider, 100% green energy.
And the reason that didn't work for me
Yes.
is because my wife and I have a Teslas operating on 1 charger.
All right.
And they couldn't handle, that was too much difficulty. So her car would not get charged. When we plug it in, it would not get charged. So they were very helpful and very considerate. They're worth looking at for sure. Yeah, but the reason it just didn't work for us.
Good learning, Colin.
She could plug it in and it looked like it was startup charging, but then it would cut off later. Yeah. So yeah, it was pardon? Their app couldn't handle 2 cars on 1 charger. Yeah, I think their app couldn't handle 1 car or 2 chargers on one
One account. Yeah.
On 1 account. Yeah, that's a problem. They're not there yet. Yeah.
All right. Good question. Thank you. Moving along, there's Green Mountain Energy, and I was a customer, a client of Green Mountain for many years, and I left them recently. I'll explain that in a minute. So they have their solar all-nighter EV plans, but it's not available in our area. If you go to their site and look for their EV plans, this will come up, but when you put in your zip code, it says not available in your area. So maybe that's something that will grow in the future. And then lastly, I've got Tesla Electric, and there are two Tesla Electric plans, one for owners of Tesla Powerwalls and one for Tesla car owners, EVs. So this Tesla Electric, in the past, this was a new VPP option, virtual power plant. On this one part of the slide here, you had an option to join, and then you could sign in. You can see the rates here. 15.2 is an estimated rate. That's a blended rate. The off-peak is 14.1, and the peak is actually, this slide's out of date. The peak now is, I'll show you more up to date. It's much less than this 24. You can see their peak period is only from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The rest of the 24 hours, you're on off-peak. And here are their terms of use pricing. I'm going to go on past that. Here's another article. This is from July, not that earlier February article. Tesla says its Powerwall electricity customers can be paid to send power to the grid. And there's been a lot of spin about this on the internet, on Twitter, and some other sites. I just want to point out Eric Sweet, who's on this call, or he was, and, John Sweet, looking at a Tesla Powerwall at a home in Clear Lake. So what Tesla does is it aggregates multiple Powerwalls. You might have one, you might have more than one. And the Powerwall can charge up from your, if you have solar during the day, or if you don't have solar, you can charge up from the grid during the day at the low daytime rate, which is 17 something cents a kilowatt. And then in the afternoon and evening, when prices spike on ERCOT, you can then sell power from your battery for a higher price. And this is how people are making money. So here are a couple of things I noticed recently from last month. Tesla Electric customers report making as much as $150 a day. Wouldn't take too many days for that to be a good thing, would it?
Right.
So Tesla Electric is only available in Texas. I didn't mention it. So you can see this in this middle panel here, they're showing they were selling electricity for 32 cents. And I'm looking to see if this house has solar. It looks like it has a solar roof, not solar panels, in the electric article on the web. Here's on the right part, a panel that I copied from Twitter. Tesla Electric plan going wild today. This is from 2 months ago in June. And this user, Clayton Meeker, is pumping, the green coming out of the battery shows the direction of current flow. So he's pumping 10 kilowatts out of his battery, and plus solar is putting 16.5 kilowatts into the grid. And if it's at a time of day when rates are high, over here, the exact rate isn't shown, but there's a threshold here, and this changes during the day to day and during the day. On this particular screen capture that he submitted to Twitter posting, or should I say X, the threshold price was $1. So this person, it looked like it spiked up above that and was still getting above $1. And this is the little infographic that shows power flow. A static capture doesn't show it much, but I've got some that are in motion. Here are a couple of examples. Here's somebody who's from Twitter who's selling, or X, who's selling at $4.76 per kilowatt. That is making a profit. Here's one that's over $5, another one that's over $5. These are not from my system. So how is this working out for me? I've had 3 billing cycles now, and I'm very close to getting my 4th mid-August. My billing period is middle of the month to middle of the month. So I started April 19th, and now the 15th of each month is the end of a cycle. That's when I get a bill. The app will tell me you have a bill ready. You can download it and analyze it. So for my very first bill, let's get to the bottom line. I had a $32 electric bill during a fairly hot period. I was paying only 6 cents per kilowatt hour, but I was selling at 18 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's how I got the price down to a favorable amount. I'm going to show you the second and third statements now. So second bill period, not quite as favorable. Instead of cost buying electricity at 6 cents, buying it at 12 cents, and I'm selling it at 10 cents or 11 instead of 18 cents. So it wasn't quite as favorable. I had a $95 bill in mid-June in my house, which is 2,500 square feet, air conditioning, swimming pool. That probably would have been a $250 to $300 without the solar and the sellback. This is my most recent statement. This is for mid-July. And as I said, we are real close to getting an August statement. So now I'm paying 0.5 cent per kilowatt hour in that period. I was selling at 72 cents, 73 cents for a kilowatt hour. And my bill was actually negative $2.28. And this is in the height of the heat wave that we are enjoying here in Texas this summer.
Wow.
So far, I'm a fan. You know, it's early days, 3 statements so far, but looking favorable.
Mhm.
Here's how the batteries are generally performing. Just a little background on batteries. One feature is storm watch. When there's bad weather in the forecast, the battery system picks this up. They go into storm watch. And as you can see here, I'm going to click this and get the flow going. It's actually pulling 14 kilowatts from the grid, of which 4 are running the house. That's this number up here. And it's putting 10 kilowatts into the battery. That's exceptionally high. Don't normally get that, except during storm watch. And the battery at this point, when the screen was captured, was at 88%. It was at 5:30 in the afternoon. So it was going to very quickly get to 100% with the sun up. And then at 9:01 the next morning, you can see it says grid outage here. You can see there's a red X on the line to the grid. So I'm not getting anything into or out of the grid. And the solar is running the house and it's charging up the Powerwall. The Powerwall dropped down to 80% overnight. The home is running at 4.4 kilowatts. And I found in my house, if nothing major is running, the electric oven, the car charging, my background level of electricity usage is about 0.4, 0.5 kilowatts. The pool system, which is 1 or 2 pumps, regular pump and auxiliary pump at times, is about 3 kilowatts. And the air conditioning in my house is another 3 kilowatts. So those 2 main power hogs are going. That's 6 kilowatts plus another 0.5 kilowatt for the background. That can be typically the highest I'll be running at. I almost never charge my Tesla EV at home because I got it during a promotional period. And when unlimited free supercharger for life was included. So I'll just go to a nearby supercharger. My nearest one's at the Galleria, and charge for free there and do a little walking around the shops to get some exercise in. So here are a few more screen grabs. These are mostly from my system. Here is the animated version of that little infographic. And there are 4 nodes on here. My house is down here. Putting 14.9 kilowatts from my battery into the system. Other Tesla electric members like myself are putting almost 3,000 kilowatts into the system. Tesla has their own sustainable power sources from batteries and solar in Texas. They're also pumping in here, but not so much, 135 kilowatts. These 3 sources are collectively selling over 3 megawatts into the grid. And some screen grabs, these are mainly for me, over $1 here, half $1 here, $1.80 here was a good one, and over $3 selling price here. Let me move on. The electric statement, if you care to look at it on screen or print it out, it is many, many pages. It's like 16 or 20 pages, half in English, half in Spanish. And here's a clip of it. I've highlighted in blue here, the fat part of my billing period. Every one of these 15-minute nodes here, I was selling at a sellback credit of over $1. Here's a little zoom in on that. You can see I was close to $5 an hour for some of this period. So this was in the afternoon. This is between 3:30 and 5:15. And that's a high price. That's a sweet spot in this game. More recent news. This is from June. Tesla confirms, again, they're expanding this program more in Texas and also into Puerto Rico. And here's a news article from this week, again, from Electric. They're going to start building in the Northeast. And here they are touting that people can make over $100 a day on this system. I've yet to see that, but I'm not unpleased with the rates I've been getting. Here's a big summary table. And I brought a printout of this if anybody wants to photograph it, or there may be other ways of sharing it. These are the various plans that I investigated. And the first 5 columns I've lumped into EV only. If you have an EV and you're looking for an alternative electricity plan, the names of the providers are up here at the top, the REPs. The names of the plan are here. And then you can look at the details here, their cost. Here's Tesla. This is Tesla electric for vehicles. The one I've been showing you is over on the far right. That's Tesla electric for Powerwall. And those are the other 2 gross categories. Let's say you're an EV driver and you also have solar on your house. Well, then you probably should be talking to one of these 2 plans. You can see their rates here. They're fixed. One of them had a nice bonus on it. What was $30 a month? I'm looking for that. Octopus, I think. Yeah. Octopus pays you $30 a month just to sign up for the plan and use it to charge your EV. So I actually said to the guy, well, what if I do all my charging at superchargers? Do you still pay me the $30? How would you know if I'm charging my car or not? And he didn't have a good answer for that. And lastly, the 4th column, which may be the lowest number of participants, but I can only find one company in this category, and that's the Tesla electric for Powerwall. And I showed you some sample screen grabs from that. All right, so these are the more correct prices. The earlier slides had too much for peak rate. 11.9 off peak, and then peak is 16.9. And they calculated a 12.6 blended rate. And this peak rate's only for 3 hours, 4 to 7. Everything else is off peak, so that's pretty favorable. There is a TDU, a transmission distribution utility charge. That's what you pay CenterPoint to get the electricity through the wires and down to your home. And there is solar buyback. They pay 90% of RTMP, which is real-time market price. And you saw on my 3rd statement, I had a couple of dollars positive. That can roll over indefinitely. I can cash out every 12 months. Or if leaving the plan, there's no penalty for leaving the plan. Most of the other ones are anywhere from 100 to 150 to almost 400 for exiting. And here's the basic strategy here. Store solar production with the Powerwall, which is required, and then export to the grid when prices spike. And that's the genius of the whole thing. Very simple. Only available in Texas, only by invitation. If you're in Texas and you have a Tesla app and you have the battery, eventually you'll see an invite on the app to join Tesla Electric for Powerwall. It's all part of a big virtual power plant. So summing up here, these are some suggestions based on what I've found in just this summer, and this is changing all the time. I had to update this slide back just today. For EV owners with no solar or battery, you've got these options here, these four providers, some of which have more than one plan. If you have solar, there are 2 options here, the Green Mountain and the Octopus. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, Green Mountain. And if you have a battery, the only one I could find, and there's one I have the most experience with, is Tesla Electric for Powerwall. Again, only available in Texas.
And if I can chime in for a second.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't have a Tesla. I don't have a Tesla system. I have solar, which was an in-phase system, and I have an EV, and I'm on a buyback plan that's nights free. So it's a time of use plan with Amigo Energy. I pay nothing between 9 o'clock at night and 7 in the morning. Between 7 in the morning and 9 o'clock at night, anything I pull down, I pay 26 cents a kilowatt hour. But with my 20 kilowatt hours of battery and my 14.8 kilowatt hours of panel, until we hit this heat wave in June, basically paid nothing. I went onto this plan in November. And during my second month, I accidentally triggered my car to charge in that evening time frame when I was paying 26 cents a kilowatt hour, and I drew down my house batteries. But since then, I've been keeping my having my house batteries top off from their electricity if it's free at night. I've been charging my cars from their electricity that's free at night. I've been running during the day as long as my solar keeps up from the solar. And then, again, until June, when things ramped up temperature wise, my 20 kilowatt hours of battery was carrying me from when the panels stopped producing enough to keep up and 9 o'clock at night. I don't get nearly the buyback rate that you're getting. I'm getting a whopping 3 cents a kilowatt hour for my excess energy. But one thing I got that I didn't expect is those base fees. That's like $10 and change a month. That even on the perfect rewards plan that I was with Green Mountain, I still ended up paying that $10 and change, even if I shipped as much energy upstream as I pulled down. I get credit against those. So from months 2 through 6, I built up a credit on the account.
All right. Who's this speaking? Is that Robert?
That's Seth.
Seth, sorry. Thank you. And what was the plan? Did you say it was Amigo?
I'm on Amigo Energy, which is a brand of Just Energy. I think they may have offered similar plan through Just Energy. It's their free nights plan.
Okay.
Free nights with buyback. And you won't find that on the website. You actually have to call them. Well, you can get the free nights plan, but to get the buyback, you actually have to call them.
Interesting.
So very advantageous for you. Yeah.
I've been exploiting the hell out of it. I mean, I've paid them net. Yeah, last month I paid them $102, and back in that first month's bill, I paid them $1.80. And
Wow.
In this climate.
So Seth, do you have any insight yet as to what the buyback or payback period might be for the investment that you made in order to be able to get these low bills? What's your return on capital, or what's your payback?
so when I initially put the panels in and I was on a pure match plan with Green Mountain, I was looking, I think, close to 8 years for payback on the panels. And then when I added the batteries, that expense added about another 6 years to my payback, assuming I stayed on that same plan. Now that, so my first couple of years, my net cost ran in the ballpark of $1,100 to $1,200 a year, charging 2 EVs and running the house and using my panels. With this plan so far since November, like I said, through last month's closing date, I paid a total of 105 out. So I'm doing much better. But so I'm thinking my break even now is probably down in the 12-year range. That said, if I did not have a system on my house right now, and I was out shopping right now, in Texas, with Tesla, having got themselves registered as an utility, and basically doing what Gritty used to do, which is getting you close to real-time wholesale, or close to real. Gritty was getting you real-time wholesale, but Tesla's close to that, getting you close to real-time wholesale on the power you're selling back. I would be putting a Tesla system in right now if I was putting a system in.
Thank you, Seth.
Great to hear that. Yeah.
I want to make one clarification here on the bullet point for EV owners with solar, Green Mountain Rewards Perfect Match. that's no longer available. That you would have to be grandfathered in as a long time Green Mountain customer, which I was. I know there are other current and former Green Mountain customers in this room and in the group. And Green Mountain was great for a while. They would buy.
Well, they did the grandfathering that they offered, and why I jumped to the time of use wasn't at the same rate for people. Yeah, they still offer a plan like that for new customers if you buy the system through them. If you didn't buy the system through them, the rate that they were charging you was like almost 30% more.
You mean a solar system?
Right. So I was on that perfect match plan is what I was on when I first put in my system, because I installed my panels through one of their partners. And the first year that they stopped offering that on the market, I got grandfathered and I got to keep it. The second year, my rate was jumping. Yeah. So initially my rate was like 12.7 cents. And then when they stopped offering it on it, they said, well, if you were installed by a partner, you can still get it. Then the second time I came up for renewal, I said, well, you can get a similar plan. Our current rate for people we're installing is 14.8, and you can get 19.8.
All right. Yeah. Like I was going to say, Green Mountain used to be great. They would buy as much excess as you could sell them at the same price you bought from them. But then when they came up for renewal, they put a cap on it. They would only buy as much, as great an amount of electricity as you would purchase from them. You couldn't sell them more than you purchased.
Yeah. They wouldn't sell you couldn't sell back excess beyond what you had downloaded.
Right. So it evened out. And even that's not available anymore. That's only for previous customers.
Well,
so
it's only for previous customers that purchased through them.
Right. Good. That kind of wraps up for me, but certainly happy to entertain any questions.
All right. Yeah. So folks have questions for Jim?
Next slide.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if anyone wants to go look at that perfect match plan on Amigo, I put a referral code in the chat.
Okay, great.
Because that referral, yeah, they'll give you $100 credit, and they'll give me $100 credit.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yeah, so it works out well. I've often mentioned to folks that don't have any solar or anything that they have to really watch their daytime power draw if they're going on a free nights plan, because different companies have offered it in the past. But yeah, you've really optimized it with the free nights plan that you've got. That is great.
Well, I'm also charging 3 EVs at night. So I'm really abusing it.
3?
I have 2 bolts and a leaf. So I'm really abusing the hell out of it.
Okay. So as we continue with questions for Jim, is Fred Atwood in the room?
So
Are you around there?
you see the questions in the chat?
So I was reading through things in the chat. I'm not. First of all, is Fred in the room to talk?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because we'll wrap up here. But so are you referring to the question from Ken? Do all of these plans except Tesla require a specialized EV SE from the rep? Did you know, Jim?
I didn't quite make that.
Do all of these plans except Tesla require a specialized EVSE from the rep?
So for folks who own an EV, in order for the retail electric provider to know when they're charging their EV, do they have to have a separate meter? In the case of Tesla, of course, Tesla has the data. They know which car is charging and which car is owned by a particular homeowner. But for the others?
So I answered that one in the chat. From what I've seen, they just give you a window that they're going to charge you the EV rate.
Okay.
And that window is in
So
that.
this is
09
basically
timeframe.
a time of use plan, right?
It's a
Without
time of use
regard
plan.
to
They
what
just give
we're,
you a
I mean,
window.
I
They
could be
say,
running a swimming
during this
pool or I could
window,
be running a charger.
rate is
It's all
lower.
the same.
Right, yeah, so folks could take advantage to have other big power draw pieces of equipment besides an EV drawing at that time in those
But, yeah.
windows.
But other than an EV, most people aren't going to have something that could draw big amounts of power.
So Seth, can you clarify something on your follow-up answer? The CenterPoint interconnection agreement, is that required only if you are a net producer at certain hours, or is that required? What are the
It's-
requirements for that?
So if you're going to connect a power source to the grid, be that solar panels, a gas generator, a backup battery, you need to get an electrical installation that includes a automatic transfer switch that will isolate your source from the grid if the grid is down, so that you don't backfeed the grid and endanger the lineman. And will control which way the power is flowing. And then that interconnect agreement with CenterPoint has them, they don't actually change your meter, because these new smart meters, they don't have to physically come change it, they just do it by programming. Will get reprogrammed to measure both the electricity that's coming downstream and the electricity that you're sending up. So you get your plan drawn up by your installer, or if you're a master electrician, you can do this yourself. You get it submitted to CenterPoint. CenterPoint approves it. You get it installed. CenterPoint comes out here and verifies the installation, and then approves the interconnect agreement, and then you can go live. So when I first put in my solar panels, I had to get an interconnect agreement because I could put power onto the grid.
Right,
When
so
I
I
added the
appreciate
batteries,
the safety
I
concern
had to
there,
update
absolutely.
the interconnect agreement. So your installer does all that, be that Tesla or Sunrun or any one of the other power installers. They would put in a solar system or a battery system for you.
Okay, let's wrap it up there. Fred, if you'd like to come up to the front of the room and like to say thanks, Jim. I mean, this is great to have all the data that you it's really something that a lot of people want to sink their teeth into and decide for themselves what's good for them. You covered a lot of territory there. Okay, Fred, good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here.
So while he's pulling that up, you want to describe what you put on the desk there?
Yeah, this is the book that, probably some of you know, my brother was a big EV skeptic. And then to our surprise, he went out and bought a Chevy Bolt.
Oh, all right.
And then he sent me this book that he said he read and he thought it was great. And it's called, the book is The History of the Electric Automobile. And the book was published in 1996.
Huh?
So it's before all of this big boost in the EVs out there in the market since then. It's been really an interesting book to read because it goes all the way from the 1891 all the way to the present, the present being 1996.
Okay.
I found the rapid, there you go. Oh, there we go. So how do I change just, oh, okay. So you can go to the next one. Okay, so that's the book. And it's like 600 pages and the last 100 pages is an appendix. So there's tons of very technical information in this book, despite the fact that it was written before all the progress that we've seen in recent days. The electric vehicle and the internal combustion engine vehicles began development at roughly the same time. The public didn't like the combustion engines because they were basically noisy. They didn't have mufflers in the early days. They were stinky, oil dripping, mechanically complicated, hard to start. Women had trouble starting them, and with potential of freezing the engine from the water cooling system. And also steam vehicles, believe it or not, they came around as early as the 1860s, which is 20 years earlier, before these other two horseless carriages came along. They were also complicated, noisy, and scary to operate. So what I think really kind of made me excited was how in these early days, these people that developed these horseless carriages really had no precedent. They had, other than just having horse-drawn wagons, that was about it. I mean, there was no motors, for example, were not, you couldn't go out and buy an electric motor. They were not an article of commerce in 1881. The batteries were there's all kinds of batteries out there. They were trying all different kinds of chemistry. And so it's just basically pretty nice, pretty amazing that these guys developed separately, originally handmade and assembled all these parts in all kinds of novel ways. The advantage of horseless vehicles was that the procurement and upkeep of horses was expensive and time consuming. Horse hooves were damaging to road surfaces. City streets had to be kept clean of manure. Distance and speed were very limited. And all too often horses died due to exhaustion or were just left dead on the side of the road. It's been said that the horseless carriage was the emancipator of the horse. The idea of horseless vehicles did not inspire public interest until about 1894, when it was publicized throughout the world of a race between the horseless vehicles, all three of them, EV, steam, and internal combustion. The race was from Paris to Bordeaux, France, was 704 miles and was completed in less than 49 hours at an average speed of 14 miles an hour. The public's indifference, lackadaisical attitude about it completely changed overnight. They were really enthusiastic about this new mode of transportation. And you go 700 miles in just, in a reasonable couple days. Between July 1st and November 1st, 1895, that's just a period of 3 or 4 months. There were no less than 300 different types of motor vehicles under construction. All kinds of things were being produced. So let's go to the next slide. So here's a little bit of a grid. The steam vehicles had about a 10% efficiency, modest maintenance. The original grid I took this from said 2-minute startup. Well, I watched some videos on steam vehicles and they were taking like 20 minutes just to get the steam cranked up, but they could go like 40 miles an hour. So they were fast. Internal combustion, 15% efficiency, modest maintenance. That might be a stretch. I think they were more than modest. 5-minute startup time, if all goes well. Speed, about 20-25 miles an hour. Electric, 50% efficiency, very little maintenance, immediate startup. They went about 25 miles an hour. The horse, they claim 70% efficiency, considerable maintenance, 15 to 30 minutes startup, and walking speed. So the first of electric vehicles the very first one appeared in France in 1881, then in England in 1882, and the US in 1890. The very first EVs for all three countries were 3-wheeled vehicles. Oh, you can go to the next slide. three-wheeled vehicles on what was basically a bicycle frame with bicycle spoke wheels, motor, battery, and a basic controller. Note the on this particular picture, the little lights sticking up on poles on either side of the wheels. Those were an amp meter and a voltage meter, and they were actually lit up so they could see them at night. It wasn't a light to see where they're going. They didn't care where they were going because there weren't any other vehicles on the road. So no sooner than this particular EV, this one in the picture is the English one. They were all three of them developed in all three countries, were very similar in construction. But no sooner than this particular EV hit the road, the owner got cited by the Red Flag Act in Britain in 1882. It was passed by the English Parliament. This law pretty well stifled development of personal non-animal powered vehicles in England. The law required on a person with a red flag to walk not less than 60 yards ahead of any non-animal powered vehicle on any public road or highway as a safety warning for the public and their horses. Also, speed was limited to 4 miles an hour. So, and they had a bunch of other requirements. And this law was finally rescinded in 1897. So it was 15 years with this crazy law on the books. And it really kind of stifled English development of horseless carriages. But England did catch up. And actually, today, you can find that they have electric bread and milk delivery trucks, which are called floats. And nobody really knows why they call them floats, but they're even used today. So the first real utilitarian EVs are based on conversions. That is, conversions of wagons, of horse-drawn wagons. The Studebaker was a major manufacturer of wooden wagons and sold a significant number of EVs of these wagons to EV manufacturers. Early EVs had wheels of different size, front versus rear, steering by tiller, which you can see in that picture, a likeness to boat rudders. Steering wheel came a bit later. Several early EVs, particularly some of the early taxis, were rear wheel steering. So go to the next slide. So that was one of the wagons. That would be like a Studebaker wagon. You'll notice they have a big wheel on the back and little wheels on the front. That was fairly common. They it had that tiller for the steering. You can see that in the picture. The wheels started out as regular wagon wheels, and they would have a metal rim on them, so it was really rough riding. Then later on, they added rubber to the rim, and so that made it a lot smoother. And the lighter vehicles, like the first slide that we saw, had spoke wheels with pneumatic tires, because bicycles even back then had pneumatic tires. Later, heavier vehicles used wooden wheels with solid rubber attached to the steel rim, and later EVs had wood or steel rims with pneumatic tires. So the wheels went through a lot of, and we're talking all this evolution of these vehicles in like 15 years. And so the frames, tubular bicycle frames, and then went to wooden, and then to metal fabricated body over a wooden frame. Early headlights were acetylene lamps, but soon electric lamps were available. Early brakes were simply pressure plates on the wheels. Later, drive shaft braking was utilized with discs or drums on the wheels. Some even had regenerative braking. One early EV actually had foot warmers. Three major drive parts of the electric vehicle that we use today were in the very first electric vehicles. They are the electric motor, the battery, and some type of controller. All three parts have gone through an amazing evolution over the years, especially in the years leading up to the peak of EVs in 1912. The motors up until 1894, electric motors were not an article of commerce, as I mentioned before. They were all handmade with lots of variation. One of the first commercial motors was the 300-pound, 3-horsepower General Electric motor available in 1894. The controllers, the early electric vehicles used voltage switching to change speeds or reverse. This was the early development of what we now call the controller. An example of common voltage switching would be like 12, 24 to 48 volts. Ampere and voltmeters were also used early on. Years later, the silicon control rectifier, or SCR, was invented, which was a huge milestone in controller evolution. So the batteries started out in the early days. There was two types of batteries. There was primary batteries and secondary batteries. Primary batteries were a one-use battery. Once the battery was depleted, it was just trash. In some cases, you could actually dump out the electrolyte, change the plates, and still use the box that was the original battery. And there was a one that entered a race back then that the guy had somebody with some electrolyte and some extra plates halfway through the race course, and he swapped out his plates and electrolyte and kept on going. I'm going to get to that. Secondary batteries were ones that you could recharge, and the battery chemistry, they had all kinds of trials with battery chemistry. They had chlorine batteries, they had a lot of different chemistry, but the lead acid battery became the most practical battery technology in the early years and all the way up until practically 1996. And this is as a kind of an aside, but as popularity of the EVs grew, the power brokers of the era even came up with an investment scheme called the Lead Trust, which bought up a bunch of EV manufacturers, battery manufacturers, and related electric industries. One of the things we should point out is that, just like today, the batteries took up a lot of weight of these. There was one a pretty successful EV called the Electrobat, developed by Morris and Salam in 1894. It was a delivery wagon, was put to daily use in Philadelphia, and they made several of them. It weighed 4,250 pounds. 1,600 of those pounds was battery. It did use the 3 horsepower GA motor that they bought off the shelf, and had a 100 amp hour battery. The speed, we don't know what the speed was, but it could carry 4 people plus supplies, and was in daily use. So the drive mechanisms, I'm going to just read through this, were mostly direct contact of the motor shaft to a very large wheel for ratio reduction. However, soon belt drive and chain drives were employed. A later development of the differential was also a major advance, allowing for geared direct drive. Also interesting was the use of dual motors on some of these early EVs. Several concepts were tried, such as the idea to use the armature for one rear axle and the field connected to the other rear axle, and eliminating the need for a differential. Another experimental concept vehicle was an electric pump fluid drive system, which was continuous acceleration, eliminated the need for a differential and a controller. This was also just a concept vehicle that was never really produced, but a French company in 1905 produced the Mildy electric coupe, which had a motor with 2 independent armatures operating in one magnetic field. This vehicle had 8 forward speeds, 2 positions of regenerative braking, and 3 reverse speeds. During the 19th century, 1897 was a significant year for EVs in American cities, as they were preferred over ICE vehicles and the steam vehicles. By 1901, however, electric, steam, and ICE vehicles were in contention with each other. 1912 is considered the peak of the early EV market, with 30,000 on the roads, 20,000 being personal vehicles, and 10,000 commercial. And I've seen even higher numbers that in other places that I've done some reading. So the next slide. This is the what they call the standard electric, which was also very, very similar to the 1910 Baker, which is what this little bank is. It was produced as a toy. The 1910 Baker was very, very popular. They made, I don't remember what the number is, but they made a huge number of the Baker over several years. Very successful, and they were beautiful vehicles. And you can see when I got a link of Jay Leno's driving his Baker around at the end. It's just great. The next one is a taxi. Now, these were used in New York City to haul people around. You see the driver sits up high above the passengers, and it had rear wheel steering. So it was pretty unique, but they had lots of these, and there was one order placed for like 1,600 of them for New York City. The next slide is a popular delivery wagon. You see these a lot in pictures. They got the little tiller steering, and they were used to deliver everything from milk and bread. They even made toys. And matter of fact, I think I even have one here. Here's one. Here's a toy electric delivery wagon. So really electric just was like everywhere back then. Next slide. And this one is my favorite because wouldn't you just love to have that? That is a beautiful vehicle, and got the pneumatic tires. Just looks like a car, really hot looking car. So next slide. There was charging stations set up all over. This is a Baltimore, Philadelphia area, and you can see all those little dots are charging stations. It's rather amazing that they were able to do that. So you could actually drive around and charge your vehicle numerous places. So even though EVs were expensive compared to combustion vehicles, they continued to be built up until the 1930s. But however, in 1930s, only a few people wanted them anymore. And so you had to special order them. And several of the EV, well, a lot of the EV manufacturers just kind of died out. But one of them survived, and how they survived is they started producing material handling equipment for warehouses. That's the Baker company that produced these. And they survived to this very day. I don't know if any of y'all have driven a Baker forklift, but I know I have. They're everywhere. And so Baker is continuing to survive with electric vehicles. After 1912, combustion vehicles pretty well took over the market as Henry Ford was selling his assembly line Model Ts for as little as $260. The least expensive EV was about $1,200 at that time. Incidentally, the Detroit Electric, which was fairly similar to this Baker, was a favorite of Henry Ford. He owned 4 of them. So moving on to the 60s and 90s, through the 90s, the quote from the book: in anticipation of oil shortages and increasing air pollution in American cities, the U.S. Congress passed, over a presidential veto by President Ford from Michigan, the Electric Hybrid Vehicle Research, Development, and Demonstration Act of 1976. This allowed for government funding for research and development of EVs in America and brought about a resurgence of research driven by engineers who could see on the horizon the environmental concerns due in part to a world full of internal combustion engines. So the 60s to the 80s were a time of tremendous effort by vehicle manufacturers in concert with electric companies all over the world. Examples are Ford partnered with GE, Chrysler with Westinghouse, GM with a company called Linear Alpha. Also foreign companies, Toyota, Nissan, Daihatsu, Fiat, VW, Peugeot, and even startups like CityCar. So there was a lot of development of EVs at that in that time period. The effort is detailed in 9 chapters of this book, just deal with this 1960s to 1990s development. So during this time, they were huge major improvements in the motors, controllers, and the use of AC current systems. There was a lot of promise for the future of the EV and providing groundbreaking technology. The only stumbling block was the batteries, both from a standpoint of energy density and expertise. So the author died at age 90 in 2005, but probably was aware of GM's effort with the EV1, which started in 1996. With lead acid batteries, and then the second generation had nickel metal hydride batteries. As some of you know, all the EV1s were pulled from their leases in 2002 and destroyed by GM, except for a few that were donated to universities and museums. After publication of this book, the lithium-ion battery technology technology was given new hope for a bright EV future. And I often wonder if the author of this book, Henry Wakefield, was aware or involved in the ultimate development of the Tesla Roadster in 2008. So the final point, significant information in this book came from antique publications of the Horseless Age, which was like a newspaper that covered all the development of these vehicles. It was amazingly detailed technologically. And also the author cited early 18 to 1900 issues of Scientific American, which also documented early developments of the horseless vehicles. So I have a quiz, just 5-6 questions. Who first used the word electricity, which was taken from the Greek word for amber, electron? When amber is rubbed with fur, both items become electrically charged. Anybody know the answer?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Huh?
Aristotle?
You're getting close. Who?
Aristotle?
No, but it was in 1600.
Oh, much later than I thought.
Much later. Dr. William Gilbert, physician to Queen Elizabeth. Okay, so question 2, what American inventor first assigned positive and negative to electric current? In what year? This should be an easy one. Yeah, yay, Benjamin Franklin, 1752. So who placed between plates of copper and zinc a sheet of blotting paper steeped in salt water, thereby creating the first electric battery? Okay. Yay, yeah, Alessandro Volta of Pava, Italy, 1784. Who studied the relationship of electricity and magnetism, knowledge which led to the development of the electric motor? No, Michael Faraday, 1821. 2 more questions. DC power, these should be easy ones. DC power was developed and promoted by what individual? Yay, Thomas Edison, good job. And then the last one should be even easier. Whose lifelong research unfolded the knowledge and practical use of AC systems? This developed, resulting in 3-phase electric energy, which became our single greatest capital investment in our country, i.e. the electric grid across the United States.
George Westinghouse?
No, that was Tesla. But Westinghouse was involved in, Westinghouse was a big backer of it too. Yeah. So I recommend the movie, The Current War, the 2017 movie about Edison versus Tesla. And there was another Tesla movie put out in 2020, but it was kind of poorly reviewed. And I also encourage you to check out Jay Leno's YouTube Gas Crisis Solution, where he drives that baker around town. And that's the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. No. I encourage you, just type in gas crisis solution. And it's really a cute video. It's about 20 minutes long. And the car is beautiful. I mean, it runs just like it did when it was new. It's just amazing. Any questions? All right, that's it.
That is fantastic.
Here's my red flag. Your AV coming. Take your horses and animals out of the street.
Oh, that was fantastic, Fred. I love you talking about how you were in a Baker electric forklift. I mean, that's that's a great personal touch.
It was, I'm sure it was fun times back then. There was Jay Leno's talk. He talks about this lady that up until just recently, she drove her electric baker to this hotel in Los Angeles, where his place is, to a hotel to have her hair done. And she drove this baker since 1930 something when she bought it. But his chagrin is that he never could figure out what happened to her car when she died. Yeah, probably.
Oh, that was wonderful. Yeah, so glad that you researched that and you shared it with us.
Well, it's all in this book. And you can get
Okay.
the book for about $30 on Amazon used. This one even has library stickers on it. Yeah, but
All right.
new the book costs about $100.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
It was quite
And
very detailed. Everything you ever wanted to know is in this book.
yeah, and you got your toys too. Yeah. Okay. So, Bill Swan, are you there in the room? Did you have something that you wanted to bring out during this month's meeting?
Well, I think all the people with Tesla with Powerwall batteries mostly have left. No, I had a friend that had two Powerwalls and they were struck by lightning. The gateway is fried, and I wondered whether anybody might have any help in this area. He's looking for help. Other than
Okay.
that, Dave, unless you know of something I might have mentioned, I don't remember what.
No, that's I think what you wanted to bring out, but yeah, that's something that you can ask again next month. We can see what other folks have to say. I would think, I mean, if it's Tesla equipment, the Tesla company should have some kind of response when it gets zapped by lightning. And
Yeah, the dollars were too high.
yeah, okay. I can imagine them charging a lot. Yeah. Okay. All
I
right.
mean, unless this homeowner's insurance is going to cover something.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, it's part of the house system when it gets installed. Yeah. All right. Colin or anybody, anything else, or we'll wrap it up. All kinds of great stuff here tonight. Thanks everybody. And Colin will work his magic, I imagine, and make the video available on our chapter's YouTube channel. And
Some editing.
Some editing. And that way people can review things that were referred to, things they might want to look up. So, all right. So second Thursday next month, we'll be back here again. And I should be back there, I believe, in Houston. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.